Today, 25th of October 2011, the Cuban delegation once more, for the 20th time, we asked the General Assembly of the United Nations to lift the blockade on Cuba. This demand against the US government tried to bring justice and an end to this inhumane act of political barbarism. Viva Cuba!
Shortages of food, medicine, school supplies and more. The USA's illegal economic blockade of Cuba has been condemned on numerous occasions by the United Nations, with only the US and Israel regularly supporting it. The United States began the blockade on Cuba, the longest economic blockade in history, on October 19th, 1960, after Cuba nationalised the properties of the US citizens and corporations. Successive US administrations have toughened the sanctions. Tonight, for the 20th time, the United Nations General Assembly will again take a vote on the blockade. Last year saw 187 nations vote to lift the blockade. The US, seeing the condemnation of the world, has tried to fool us into thinking there is a relaxation of the policy. But nothing is further from the truth. Don't be fooled. The blockade is alive and well under Obama. The Obama administration has imposed tougher sanctions on companies trading with Cuba in comparison to all previous presidential administrations. Citizens and enterprises from third countries with commercial, financial and scientific and technical relations with Cuba face persecution. And the imposition of sanctions from the US. Those actions by the Obama administration prevent trade and affect development, but to US shame, it comes at the expense of the lives of Cuban citizens, including children, prevented from access to medicines and medical equipment. This is a flagrant violation of international trade, as well as a violation of the sovereignty of third states. In the area of technology, Cuba is prevented from using optical fibre cables laid near its coasts and forced to use satellite communications. This comes at a high cost to the Cuban people. The US imposed harsh sanctions on banks that engage in operations with Cuba. US citizens are still prevented by law to visit Cuba as tourists, a violation of the civil and political rights of even their own citizens. The US continues to support subversive organisations who are publicly encouraged and financed with millions through USAID and secretly through other agencies with the purpose of trying to create domestic opposition to the Cuban Revolution. The blockade is an illegal act. It violates international law and falls in the category of international crimes of genocide. It ignores the principle of the Charter of the United Nations and violates the right of development of a sovereign state. It also violates the human rights of Cuban people. Last year, the UN General Assembly vote was 187 votes in favour of removing the blockade. Only the United States and Israel voted in favour of keeping it. The United Nations General Assembly lift the blockade on Cuba!
Lift the blockade on Cuba!
Free the Cuban Five!
Free the Cuban Five!
Viva Cuba!
Viva Cuba!
The blockade has a far reach. An example, the European brand
blockade on Cuba!
End the blockade on Cuba!
End the blockade on Cuba!